Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Bokeh Podcast. I am your host, Nathan Holritz. It's good to have you here. If you are listening to the audio version of this after the fact, we are actually streaming live. In fact, all of our podcast episodes now, we do stream live at facebook.com/Bokeh Podcast. And so make sure that you go check out the restream and follow along. The visual element, the visual aspect of my interviews with my guests, I think is appealing in and of itself. So make sure you check that out. And then follow us at instagram.com/Bokeh Podcast to keep up to date with the upcoming live streams. We'll make sure to post and share those with you there in our stories. Before I introduce my guest for today, just a very quick note, something that I want to continue to remind you all to do, something that I'm going to do on an ongoing basis here before every single episode. I'm going to pop it up on screen here. Here's my receipt for a donation to Charity Water. Now, this is a very small donation. You may see it's $40, but $40 means clean drinking water for somebody that is in need of it. In fact, something like 750 million people in the world don't have access consistently to clean drinking water. And so that is the organization that I'm giving to. But of course, there are many out there, whether local or international. Just find a simple way to give back. Even a little bit makes a difference. I was inspired by our guest, Sean Lee, who came on the show a little while back. And he really pushed me. And I want to do more. And I want to encourage you all to do the same. So I just wanted to make note of that there. All right. Well, on that note, I want to introduce our guest for today, who is actually a return guest. Michael Sasser is here with me. Michael, thank you for coming back to hang out with us.
Dude, this is awesome. I love this.
Well, and already I'm excited for a number of reasons. We were talking before we started recording, and you were starting to share some of the principles that we're going to get into later on today. And I can already tell you're a teacher. Which is something that's kind of special in our industry. I mean, there are plenty of photographers who are super talented, but then being able to communicate the principles, the ideas behind running a successful business doesn't come naturally for everybody. So I'm excited to share your wisdom, your ideas with our audience. But I have to do this first. I don't know if you even remember this. It's been something like 4 years ago now.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's episode 46. We're going to link to this in the show notes of Bokeh Podcast. But July 2017. You were on the show. You were kind enough, I should say, to be on the show when we were still brand new and trying to figure out what we were doing.
Dude, I was just excited I was like right in the beginning of my journey of sharing some of the things that I knew. And I didn't really know the best ways to do that. It was recommended to like reach out to some podcasts and see if I was teaching a lot of videography at the time, videography for boudoir photographers. And so I was really excited to chat about that with you. And man, it's crazy how... it's a journey. It is a journey.
It is. I mean, this is for us, about 450 episodes later. And I know you've been creating an incredible amount of content. In fact, I want to share this really quick on screen. So for those of you that are watching live or listening in live, you can see here Michael's YouTube channel. Of course, we'll link to this in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Over 140,000 subscribers, tons of content specifically as it relates to the boudoir genre, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today. And then, Michael, while I've got this pulled up, I'm going to go ahead and share your website as well for everybody listening in or watching, sasserstillsboudoir.com, SASSERSTILLS, and then boudoir.com. And then the same thing on Instagram. We're also going to talk a little while later about your education as well, specifically at boudoircourses.com. We'll come back to that. But man, you've got a lot going on too. I mean, did you feel during last year, kind of the height of the pandemic, did it give you more time to work on some of that content? What was that like for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what I wanted to do was connect with people a little bit more personally then. So I was still doing my YouTube channel. I was still doing my Instagram. But over the pandemic, I created my Facebook group for photographers because I wanted a way to like go live and chat with people. Everybody was at home. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody took time to work on their businesses. I think sometimes people get in this mode of like, I'm too busy. I can't work on my business. Being busy is a really good problem to have. But I think if you're too busy, you're not charging enough. So, what it ended up making people do was for them to slow down and to say, okay, how can I improve my business? So I took that as a really amazing opportunity to connect with photographers and share what I knew, chat with people. And so it ended up being a positive connection thing for me over the pandemic.
I think there's something to be said. I mean, I know that it was, like as you pointed out, kind of a trend, not only for photographers to kind of work on their business, but also to try to create free content. And there's a lot of content going around. Frankly, I think a lot of times, quality suffers in the process of people just putting out masses and masses of content. But I can already see, just looking at your YouTube channel, the production quality is through the roof. And for that matter, our conversation today, I'm not used to having a photographer on who has this like fancy camera with the nice bokeh in the background, good lighting, good audio. This is going to be a fun one today. So anyway, I appreciate you doing this show. And again, for everybody listening in, make sure you check out sasserstillsboudoir.com. I've got that popped up on the screen. Same thing on Instagram. And of course, we'll link to those in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Let me jump right in, because we've got a pretty cool topic to get into a little bit later about exclusivity, how to create the sense of exclusivity in a business. Before we do, a few so-called rapid fire questions. We actually talked about this 4 years ago, but I figured I'd bring it back up again. Talk to me about your photography business's brand position, or kind of the unique value proposition of that brand for you in your marketplace.
So the first thing is boudoir in general is relatively specific, but even within boudoir, then there are deeper levels. You've got some people that create really mystical or whimsical work with wings, and you've got some people that shoot like very magazine type stuff. I've always tried to create really natural, like honest, real images of real people. My retouching is a lot less than your average photographer, I've been told, which sometimes people are like, yes, thank you, like that's what I'm looking for. And other people are like, well, I'd really like, quite a bit of touch up. I'm just insecure about some things. Is that something you can do?
Yeah,
exactly. So that's not something that I do nearly as much in my business, which is kind of unique. I offer videography, some slow motion boudoir videos, which are really cool and different and not that many people offer. So I would say when people come to my website, what they leave feeling is like a place where they're looking for like acceptance within their bodies, and that doesn't have to go through a process of fancy retouching, and they don't have to show up and wear things that they wouldn't normally wear in order to feel amazing about themselves.
Well, and I actually have your site pulled up for anybody listening in. Again, make sure you go to sasserstillsboudoir.com. But I've got this pulled up on screen here, and above the fold, big text, you've been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. I love how you set the tone there for that conversation that you were talking about, which is a certain level of acceptance that you're helping others have about themselves in front of your camera. And I know that we could spend a whole episode or 3 probably talking about how you create that environment. Maybe we can actually come back to that another time, because I know you've got a lot to offer there. But I do want to keep moving, because we have a pretty big topic to come back to.
Let's do it.
Talk to me about client experience. And I kind of add the caveat from time to time about this, because I know it feels like a cliche topic to go back to. But even with technology and social media and everything that we have at our fingertips as photographers now, at the end of the day, it's still about experience. And that's been my personal experience as a photographer. I've certainly seen it from other photographers. What is the driving idea behind the customer experience that you create for your clients?
I would say one of the biggest things is making the client feel heard and important and listened to.
Yeah.
And which can be difficult to do and time consuming. But, I have a phone call with every one of my clients before they book. You can't book with me unless we get on the phone. Some people are really, they don't want to talk on the phone. Some photographers don't, some clients don't. But that's a must for me. They can hear my voice.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. They get a bunch of emails even after they book, before they come in, with an outfit guide and with different things, just to make sure that they feel really prepared. I think one of the biggest things is that they don't feel like they're walking in blind, and that they're going to be taken care of and handheld. I think it reduces a lot of the stress for them.
Yep.
A lot of the anxiousness, a lot of the I'm going to show up and the pictures are going to be bad because I don't know what I'm doing. But if I can show them enough that I know what they're supposed to do, that I know what I'm doing, and that I'm going to be with them every step of the way, then they feel really heard and taken care of.
I like how you talked about it. It was just a little bit there in what you were saying, but you know what you're doing, which then enables you to effectively manage their expectations. And I think, and I'm speaking for personal experience, maybe projecting a little bit, but I know that many times as a business owner, if you're not clear about what it is that you're trying to get done, or in the case of a client experience, what experience you're trying to create, then you don't exactly know what's going to happen. It's going to be a bit haphazard in nature. intentional efforts at creating a very particular client experience, if you know exactly what it is that you're trying to create, then you can deliver on that. That's huge. And it may seem kind of subtle, but I think it's super important.
Expectations are massive, and the clearest way to explain this in every part of your business is if somebody expects 10 images but gets 15, they will be ecstatic. If they expect 100 images and they get 75, they'll be upset.
Yes.
So across the board, you have to manage and set expectations, and the more communication you can have when doing that, the happier your clients are going to be.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of transition here, a little different vein of conversation time. You seem like a pretty chill guy, pretty organized guy. Maybe it's a beautiful facade for the sake of Facebook and YouTube, but in all seriousness, is there something that you have learned over the years as a business owner, and now not just juggling a photography business, but other elements to that business as well, about managing time, a big idea that drives your ability to create a bit of space for yourself?
I'm gonna defer this question to Tim Ferriss. I read the 4-Hour Work Week about 5 years ago, and he taught me he taught me that we have control over our time, and he taught me that there's a term called Parkinson's Law, which is a task will be completed in the time that is available. So I really took that to heart and started giving myself deadlines for everything. That's how I was able to create a YouTube video a week, to post a YouTube video every week. If it was Sunday and I didn't get to one, and I was like, well, I have to post it tomorrow, then I would just have to come up with something easy and simple that I could do in an afternoon and put it up the next day, even if it was just to keep the streak going. So deadlines are a big one. For a while there, I used to have to put calendar in my calendar. I'm allowed to do email from 10 to 11. Lunch is from 11 to 12. When you're your own business owner, you don't owe anybody any time. You have to get the things done that you have to do. Marketing is from 1 to 2. You know, these sort of things. So writing things down in the calendar was massive. And then I would say the last thing is putting into place systems. So, for instance, my emails that I mentioned, all the clients get, all those are automated. They book with me, I click a button, and then they get 7 emails from that day until leading up to their shoot with reminders about their outfits, with the address of the studio and parking information and what not to forget, and reminds them not to go to a spray tan, and all of those things are done.
This needs to happen
without any effort from me. This needs to happen, and so those are things. Systems, deadlines. Give yourself shorter amount of time to knock things out, because that's how they get done.
Love it. Brilliantly spoken, explained, taught, and we'll leave it at that. By the way, for everybody listening in, if you've got questions along the way, I should say anybody watching live, if you've got questions or comments along the way, pop those in the comment section. Ask Michael a question as it relates to whatever we're discussing. Would love to get your engagement and feedback, or just send us a funny emoji if you prefer to do that as well. We'll take it. All right. So speaking of time management then, Michael, talk to me about delegation, the concept of delegation. Obviously, we talk about it a decent amount here just because I own an editing company, but the concept of delegation is applicable regardless of editing, email management or accounting or album design, and of course any number of other things, cleaning a studio, whatever it might be. Have you experimented with this principle and found any success in it?
A little bit here and there. I did a lot when I shot wedding films. I outsourced my wedding editing. When you do the math on how much you're getting paid to shoot the wedding versus how much you're getting paid to edit the wedding, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't want to take too long to explain, but basically I doubled my per hour rate by outsourcing, which I'm sure is very, very similar for you when people start to outsource their photo editing, especially if you're a wedding photographer and you're editing for 8 hours or 10 hours.
Yes.
And you can do that for $10, $20, $30 an hour or whatever, but you're charging $500, $600, $700 an hour on the wedding day. It's a no-brainer to do. But I have done a little outsourcing. I'm looking at doing that some for my social media. I'm not great at continuing to post, so I need to have somebody to be there reminding me to do that. But I edit all of my videos. I edit all of my photos. and actually we'll talk about this a little bit in the exclusivity. I was thinking about having somebody else take my emails, but I put together a new system for my business to where I wouldn't have to outsource that.
Okay.
And so,
can I ask what system you're using for the automated emails?
So I use 17 Hats for my clients.
Yeah.
And on the side of when people inquire with me, they go through MailChimp.
Okay. Awesome.
So we can chat about that a little bit.
Sure.
But I haven't done as much outsourcing as I probably could because we talked about the systems. I've worked really hard to trim the fat on everything in the business.
Absolutely.
That isn't necessary, and to automate everything to where if I need to do it, it doesn't take me that long.
Yes.
It would almost be as long to outsource and explain to somebody as it would for me to do it myself. That's not with everything in the business, but with Boudoir, it's been able to work that way for me.
I'm glad though that you bring up the significance of automation and simplicity, both, because funny, it's when I have the opportunity to teach workflow principles to photographers at conferences or workshops or otherwise, we talk about that very concept. Delegation really can help save in a significant amount of time. But besides that, and maybe even before we get there, to your point, we have all this wonderful technology to leverage right now, much of which is even free or inexpensive, that I think many photographers still aren't completely taking advantage of. So taking advantage of tools like 17 Hats, but plenty of others as well. I mean, what I suggest to photographers actually is to literally make a list of every single thing that they do in a day. And then next to each of those items, I mean, literally from the time they get up to the time they go to bed, next to each of one of those, or each of those tasks, then literally mark it proactive or reactive. Proactive in that it enables you to accomplish a personal goal or a business goal, and then reactive in that it's something that has to be done but doesn't require your involvement. And then what you can do is literally Google search those tasks and probably find either something that's going to do it for you, software, or somebody or some company that will do it for you, Delegation. And then, of course, along with that, making sure that we're removing any of those tasks that aren't absolutely necessary. And I mean, if photographers were to take the time, a couple of days just to do that, it would literally change the dynamic of their business.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And the step before that is to remove the steps that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
So remove the steps that are unnecessary. What can an app do easily to take it off your plate? And then after that, what can another person do? Because if you start with a lot of things and you pass that off to somebody else, then they're just doing a lot of things too.
That's true.
So the more you can shrink first, the better.
Love it. Again, speaks for itself. We've got some comments coming in from Andrea. She says, love you, Michael. I watched all your videos and have your courses. And she says, I want you to do some in-person workshops. And maybe we can kind of update everybody at the end of our conversation today about what's coming as far as that's concerned. She says, I'm wondering by chance, will you guys be attending WPPI this year? Andrea, I'm going to be there at least visiting for a day or two. Are you going to be there, Michael?
I think I'll probably be. I got to double check the dates and make sure it's in August.
It is, yeah.
I'll double check the dates and see. I would love to come. I had a blast when I came there 2 years ago, and so we'll see. Maybe I'll put together a little workshop there.
Cool. Well, Andrea, I appreciate you commenting. Again, for everybody watching, listening, don't hesitate to do the same. It's meant to be a conversation here, and I would love to engage with you all. Last question before we talk about exclusivity as a principle for business. Favorite book, audiobook, physical book, Kindle book, whatever it might be, self-help book, business book over the last few years that's made a big impact for you?
I already mentioned the 4-Hour Work Week. So the other one after that is probably This Is Marketing by Seth Godin.
Ooh.
I don't know if you guys are Seth Godin fans. But,
100%.
The dude I literally I may have even cried while listening to that audiobook because he just spoke so purely about the real reason why you should be in business. And there's the main point of the whole book, if I can sum it down to, is that you have to show up daily to earn the respect of someone in order to provide your product. Like if you want to help somebody, if you want somebody to buy your product so that you can change their life, be it a boudoir shoot or a wedding, you have to show up daily to let them know that that you're going to be there and earn their respect. And then what an amazing opportunity that you now have a business does what it can. A good business does what it can to solve the customer's problems. The customer isn't there to solve your problems. So a lot of the book is based around this, changing this mentality of like, how can I get more out of my customer? And it's how can I give more to my customer?
Yeah.
And man, that book just so wild and so applicable to anybody running a business.
Yeah, This is Marketing. Andrea was asking what the title of the book. This is Marketing. I actually own the book, and I was just checking my Kindle. I have it. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to jump to that really soon because I'm a huge fan of Seth. One of the things about Seth is that he's able to consolidate and simplify concepts into fewer words than the average author. And I think there's some real value in that. I mean, you ever read his blog, sometimes the blog post can be literally 2 or 3 lines and that's it. And what he's able to communicate in those 2 or 3 lines, super poignant. I was just telling my son about him the other day, actually. So yeah, highly recommended. We'll definitely put that in the show notes.
I'll say just real quick, for anybody who has trouble, considers themselves a perfectionist, Google Seth Godin, crocodile brain or reptile brain. I think it's reptile brain. Do a quick Google search for that. It's like 15-minute TED Talk, and just watch as he shatters your perception of what perfectionism is. It's incredible.
Okay, I'll have to look that up myself too. And of course, we'll link to this in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. It looks like we're having a little bit of a technical issue, some streaming, some clarity on the feed here. Hopefully, we'll get back to a little bit more normal feed here in just a second. But in the meantime, Michelle Koopmans, I'm going to pop up this comment. And Michelle says, my favorite boudoir educator on my favorite podcast. That sounds like a pretty good combo, Michael. What do you think?
I'm loving it. We're crushing it, man.
Michelle, thank you so much for listening in. Thanks for the kind words, too. Really appreciate you listening. And we're going to keep it up because we're going to actually get into kind of our primary focus for today, the idea of exclusivity, creating exclusivity, which, I was thinking even coming into our conversation today, the irony isn't really the word, but it's interesting to use the word exclusivity in a world where, rightly so, we're talking a lot about inclusivity, right? But in the world of business, especially high-end business, a sense of exclusivity drives us all to buy. To chase, even in some cases. I know, again, I've done the same thing. I'm sure most, if not all of our listeners have had a similar, at least feeling, if not experience, working with another company, whether they're buying a purse or a camera or a t-shirt. You never know what it might be, but creating that sense of exclusivity is going to drive business for us as photographers as well. There's opportunity to do that. And Michael's here to kind of share how he's going about that process today. But Michael, as I'd like to try to do anytime we dive into a topic, I'd like to kind of go deep because it'd be easy to share just tips and tricks really quick and move on and be done. I like to get into the philosophy, the principles behind what it is that we're discussing. So first of all, if you don't mind, and you were actually doing this a little bit for me before we started, talk a little bit about what the word exclusivity means to you. And you were actually talking about different types of exclusivity as well. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so I would love to just super briefly explain why my business changed to that to this model. And after the pandemic, I just I was kind of booking anytime, and anytime somebody sent me an email, I would try and get back to them, or I didn't know, is it too late to send them a text message to try and get on the phone? Do I want to talk to them today or tomorrow? What's my schedule? It was just very difficult to plan scheduling. I see I'm breaking up here a little bit. Is the audio still coming through good?
Yeah, the audio is coming through. The feed is not. I'm not sure if there's a connectivity issue. I think we're good on this end as well. So maybe it'll clear up as we go along. Audio is coming through good.
Excellent. So I decided that I needed to take my own time back. After being stuck inside, not being able to go anywhere, I didn't want to owe my clients my time. So I decided to take all my phone calls on one day, all my client phone calls on one day a month, book my 6 sessions a month, and put them all in the first week of the month. So you can book me, dates 1 through 7 of the month. And then I only book within 3 months out. So I haven't booked my September dates yet. If I decide to go on a family trip, or I decide to take the month off, or something happens and I want to have that time for myself, I decide to move. I don't owe anybody my time into 6 months, 8 months into the future. So I had to come up with a system that allowed for all of these things to take place.
Okay.
So let's talk about what ended up resulting in it and why that made me become more exclusive. So the first thing is I had specific dates. This is a rare chance to shoot with me. I'm only shooting these dates within this time period and in this certain thing. When you call me up and they say, hey, what do you have available? And I say, really anything between now and 6 months from now. There's no sense of scarcity. So that's the first thing. The second thing is since you have to set up a phone call date with me on one date that I choose sometime in the future, you first have to enter a wait list. You can't just shoot me an email and book with me. So there's a difficulty. You have to essentially pass these objectives. The next one is having to wait. People who are willing to wait for a photo shoot for anything are going to be more invested in getting it than the person who's just doing it out of convenience. I've got here, there's a little bit of competition. There's only X amount of spots left.
Sure.
I've opened up my dates. I've got 6 dates available for September. Well, I need to make sure I get one of those 6 dates. So that creates a little bit of wow, I need to really get in there. And then the last thing is that if they really want to shoot with me, they're going to have to adjust their schedule. They're going to have to be comfortable shooting during the week. So all of these, they're essentially barriers. They're essentially barriers to enter. You have to be comfortable waiting. You have to be comfortable getting on the phone. You have to be comfortable shooting within the first 7 days. You have to be comfortable doing all of these things in order to get in. And in that way, it's not that much different. And this is what we were talking about, different types of exclusivity. It's not that much different from like having to stand outside of a restaurant to wait an hour to go sit at the table, right? If anybody's ever gone to a bar late at night and there's a long line outside, and then when they get inside, the place is pretty much empty. You're like, why is there even a line outside? It's because they're creating this sense of you have to be really invested if you want to have this experience.
Yeah. Yep.
So those are the different things that ended up taking place, and what it did was, for me, on my side of things, it allowed me to have control over my schedule. It allowed me to have more freedom. All of those things that were really important to me. But for my clients, what it did is it gave them a sense of, wow, this is really, really special if I get to have this experience. Because I was on the wait list. I made sure I set up a time to get on the phone. I got one of his few available dates. And now I get a chance to shoot with this person, who not everybody gets to do because there aren't that many opportunities to do so.
Okay. So I was taking notes. I'm kind of doing old school here with a pen and paper, and I just want to kind of go back through these 4 points that you made. First of all, the rare chance to actually be able to shoot with you. So there's a sense of exclusivity created with limited availability, I guess we could call it, right?
Absolutely.
And really, I guess I was going to ask this a little bit further down, but really with most of what we're talking about today, what enabled you to get to the place where you could create this limited availability? We'll take this first point, and not feel like you're missing out on potential clients. Because I know a lot of photographers will be like, oh, shoot, I just need as much business as I possibly can. And now I'm giving that up because I'm limiting my availability. How did you adjust the mentality to fit this model?
So the short story on that is that when I was 24, I went into this, I can't remember the name of the company, was doing like little photographer get-togethers. And I went just thinking it would be this fun little thing. And everybody was talking about burnout. And so I was 24. I was just starting my photography business. I was so excited. It was Smug Mug. I was so excited. And I went and I sat at this table full of photographers who were talking about being burnt out on photography and how they were shooting 50 weddings a year, and they couldn't. They were losing track of their clients. And they weren't excited to pick up the camera outside of their weddings, and they couldn't get the weddings they wanted to shoot because they were so focused on just taking care of their clients that they already had. They didn't know how to raise their prices. They're thinking about hanging up their camera, and it scared me to my core. I was like, this is something that I love, that one day I will sit around a table and be like, the last thing I want to do is pick up my camera. It really scared me. So I vowed to myself that I would never burn out. And so from then on, I decided that my goal was really about 6 shoots a month. And as I got older, the amount of money that I needed to live increased. And so my amount that I charged increased. So it's been a slow process of growing it, but my goal has always been about 6 shoots a month. The difference is instead of saying, yeah, you can book whichever date that you want that month, now I'm truly saying there are 6 shoots and these are the dates.
Which is
with that.
No, please go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just say that it seems like I'm being a lot more restrictive, but it's really the schedule in which I'm putting them. You're not allowed to book 6 months out. So I could have 24 shoots on the calendar and still have a bunch of availability out 6 months. And now I don't do that. Now once I'm booked up for the 3 months, I'm fully booked up and that's it. I'll decide when I want to release the next set of dates. And when I do, all I need to do is book 6 more clients and I'll be fully booked for that next month.
Wow. I mean, major kudos to you for having the guts to do that. But I think you make it an interesting point, though, too, which is, again, a certain amount of intentionality. We were talking about this earlier. You understood that you didn't want to feel X, which was, in this case, burnout. And I think a lot of photographers could relate to that. But the reality is that's just not going to happen automatically. We have to be intentional in creating a business model and the resulting systems as well that you were talking about earlier in order to then enable a lifestyle which minimizes the potential for burnout. And yet, also, you're able to generate enough revenue to make a comfortable living, right? So there's that piece too.
I'll just tell you just real quick. I just did a live in my Facebook group yesterday about a woman who she'd taken my courses. She had learned the posing. She had a post go viral, and she was shooting 50 clients, 50 clients a month. Wow. And she was only charging $200 a client.
Wow.
We spoke. I told her to get into in-person sales. She said, I think I'm going to do it next month or the month after. I was like, you have to do it. 1 year later, now she's averaging $2,000 a client and she's only shooting 8 clients a month. So
right.
Now she has the ability to earn, more than she used to be while shooting less. And I think that's the thing people think. They think the answer is more clients. And that's not always the answer. The answer is more clients who are invested in your purpose, your why, your whatever, who are willing to jump through the hoops to spend the money in order to hire you as a photographer.
Yeah, speaking of jumping the hoops, so we started with the concept of limited availability. Second was a need to pass objectives was the way that this is really random, but what popped into my head was the guy, and I can't think of the YouTube channel, the guy that creates those courses for the squirrels to try to get through.
Mark Rober.
Mark Rober. Oh my word! Yeah, we'll link to one of the videos in our show notes too for anybody who's curious. But talk about creating a certain demand that comes with risks, right? Obviously, you're not going to create risks for clients, but you are creating a limited availability by creating a need for them to pass certain objectives. What do those objectives look like?
So the first thing that they'll do, they'll go through the website and then they'll sign up for my wait list. And once they sign up for the wait list, it tells them, thank you for signing up for the wait list. I'm so excited. This is where you'll hear when the next available dates are. Keep an eye out. And then that sends them drip emails that kind of get them excited about the shoot. Maybe it's a behind the scenes video in one of them. Maybe it's a story about one of my clients, a testimonial. Maybe it's some different things. But then, on a Thursday, I'll send out an email that says, hey, book your time slots now in order to book your dates. They have to go and choose a time slot once every half hour on a Saturday or something to hop on the phone with me. And that's the only way that they can book their shoot. So if somebody messages me and says, hey, do you have any availability on the end of July or something? First of all, I almost never get emails anymore because it's so clear that they have to go through this process.
Okay.
But basically what I found was that I would get, 30 emails a month and I would book 6 clients. I'm like, why am I spending so much time responding to 30 emails to try and get so many people on the phone when I could just send them all to an email list and send out an email that says phone call dates are this day? Why am I every single day taking time out of my day to respond to somebody, to try and get them on the phone, to adjust my schedule, to why am I doing this? And I found that if my goal was, I had believed that I would still be able to book my 6 a month, which was my goal. And what ended up happening was the people who were more invested were more likely to book. And they, I mean, that was essentially the thing. If they, I sent an email and I forgot about it, and can you do tomorrow? Oops, whatever. Now people are really driven to make sure that they show up because there's stakes,
And you talked about the wait list and how that works, the significance of fitting into a schedule. But what I can imagine as I'm listening to you talk is that, and maybe this is too idealistic on my part to think this, but it seems like by the time they've worked this hard to get to work with you, that in most cases you're not working with nightmare clients, bridezillas, if you will, or clientzillas, because they're so stoked for the opportunity to get to hang with you, to be photographed by you at that point. I mean, is that the case, or what's your experience been?
Yeah, my clients have been my clients have always been really amazing. I almost never have anybody who I would consider a problem client. A lot of that has to do with us talking on the phone and them getting prep emails. But by the time that they get on the phone with me, they have now seen videos. They have read my emails. They have been through my website. I recommend that they go hop on my Instagram page so they can see recent work coming up or me sitting in front of the camera and engaging that way. So by the time we get on the phone, they are excited, but also they understand who I am and why I'm here. Whereas if somebody just Googles the first name that they see and they click on it to call and say they're going to shoot, and they show up and they say, wait a sec, I didn't realize that you had to buy prints separate, or I thought I was going to get 10 outfits, or this isn't the space that I thought we were going to be in, or something like that, because they're not really invested in the experience. They're doing it more out of convenience.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started photographing weddings, I was shooting weddings for hundreds of dollars, right? And the type of client that I would work with at that point compared to the type of client and ultimately the experience that I had when I was charging thousands and thousands for a wedding was largely different. And it makes sense. First of all, to be clear for everybody listening in, we understand that there are various demographics and various income brackets and that everybody has a need. And ultimately, there have to be businesses that meet those various financial needs or demands, as you will, depending on that income segment or market segment. But there is something very significant to working with somebody who is not only willing to pay for more of an exclusive experience, but ultimately willing to go through these steps that you're talking about, which is probably a little bit lower maintenance, shall we say, just to put it simply. And there's quite a reward there.
I just want to say two things. So the first thing is, if you're in the $200 price bracket now, literally everybody has been there. The thing that I recommend that makes this difficult is doing too much work for that $200. So I know photographers that'll do a 30-minute shoot, they'll edit for 30 minutes, and they'll upload the digitals on a page, on a Pixie set gallery or something. Yeah. That person's making $200 an hour, which is amazing, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot more than somebody who's charging $1,000 but is putting 20 hours in, and they're spending all of that time editing, and they have to rent out a studio, and they've got their hair and makeup artist and all of those things. So it can come down to your per hour cost. So don't feel like it's bad to charge for $200.
Sure. Well, and again, there's a market demand for it. And that's something I've been talking about for quite a while, because we did, on the other side of the conversation, there's been so much conversation in years past, not so much anymore, but in years past, it was prevalent, especially in wedding photography, kind of this obsession with the high-end bride. And it's naturally appealing to go and shoot weddings for $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 and more. And I certainly did it, and I understand the appeal to it and the drive for it. But the flip side of that conversation is, when I got married, for example, my parents paid $600 for the wedding photographer, and that was a lot of money for them. And that's the reality for 40 to 50% potentially even of at least the U.S. market. People
absolutely
just don't have the money. So I love that you highlight the significance of time management again, because the reality is, whether or not we're talking about serving a $10,000 client or a $200 client, these principles of time management apply. And if we're smart with the way that we're running our businesses, then our per hour revenue goes up. It skyrockets. It's just important to be super intentional in that workflow and the time management.
And then the last thing I want to say on the amount of money and where your client sits. One of my clients last month, a lot of people, there are people who have just a large amount of income and they can just spend disposable income. And there are people who don't, and they're saving up for everything, Oftentimes I get, wow, somebody spent $2,000, like, must be nice. They must just, whatever their trust fund, or it's LA or whatever. I had a client last month. She's coming to pick up her album. She took an hour-long bus ride to come shoot with me. She didn't own a car.
Wow.
She didn't own a car. She took an hour-long bus ride with me, and she spent $2,200. She got a video and a small album. And she's going to ride the bus to come pick up her album tomorrow. I said, really, you don't have to, I can ship it to you. She's like, no, I'd like to come. I like to pick up the album here. I want the full experience. And that's because, as Seth Godin will tell you, people spend money on what they value, right? She's willing to forego owning a car to get pictures that make her feel amazing. And you may
Which, by the way, I have to say, some people will be like, what? Not own a car, go get pictures? But everybody really does have their own preferences. Sometimes they feel laughable because they're not our preferences, but it's their call. It's their choice.
We all see people with either like a fancy car and like shops at H&M for clothes, or they live in a fancy house, but they, I don't know, have an old small TV, or like whatever it is. It's just like people have things that are important to them and they'll spend the money on it, and people have things
Sure.
that aren't important to them and they won't. So there's a lot of value in photography, and people are willing to spend the money.
Yeah. And we have to be careful not to project our preferences onto other people, assuming that they think the way that we do, because that can really limit our ability to grow as businesses, for sure.
I'm not sure if it's a quote, but it says, don't assume that what you want is what everyone wants.
Oh, and that's such an important quote, not just as it relates to business, but just life in general, right? It's so easy to assume. That gets us in a lot of trouble in so many different ways. So we have to be careful not to do that. I love that we have these kind of practical steps toward creating an exclusive experience for a client, at least based on the business model that you've created. And I appreciate you sharing those. But when it comes to your motivation, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but just again, to go back to thought process, philosophy, what actually motivates you to create this type of an exclusive business? Is it driven by the desire for more freedom, more flexibility in your life, like you were talking about? Is there a financial component? Is it a combination of the above? What are the thought process?
Yeah, the main is the flexibility. I ended up having a client. I'm really embarrassed about this story.
I can't wait.
But I had, so pandemic happened. I've been stuck here. I haven't really been shooting clients. I'm looking at my next year. I traveled a ton in 2019. You can see my YouTube videos. I'm in Hawaii, or I'm in Italy, or I'm wherever. And then I was stuck here, and just like everybody else. And then I had a client reach out to me and say, hey, I hired this other photographer. And I was like, oh man, that other photographer is like somebody I look up to. And she's like, and the next photographer I want to shoot with is you. And I was really flattered and was surprised even that, like, obviously if you could fly anywhere and shoot with anyone, like, why would you choose me? You must now know all of the other photographers in the industry. I'm really flattered. She said, I've done this before. I understand it's going to cost thousands of dollars. I'd just like to prepay for whatever your top collection is. Wow, this is incredible. And we were trying to figure out dates. This was like in November, and she wanted to book in March. 5 months out.
Wow.
And I could not bring myself to get a specific date with this woman because I was going through this kind of anxiety around what the future looked like, and did I want to spend all of my time shooting, or did I want to have my dates scattered? What if I wanted to take a trip? What if we were allowed to travel? What if I wanted to... I just couldn't wrap my mind around this idea of having my calendar decided for me. And I ended up losing that client. She emailed me back and said, I haven't heard back from you in a couple days. I'd like to cancel my purchase.
Wow.
It doesn't look like, I'm very important in your space.
Oh.
And it really hit me. I had to stop, and I just laid down. I just thought about it. I was like, why would I have let this happen? This is the exact opposite of my business. And so I took a deep look at why I was so afraid to start this next year booking a bunch of clients. And that, as a result, made me call up a couple photographers. It's like, how do I continue to book the same amount of clients without feeling this claustrophobia around business coming up? And obviously that's, maybe that's a really fortunate position to be in. Everybody would be like, I would feel lucky to book as many, people as I possibly could. But for me, it froze me. And so that's what this was born out of. This is born out of having control. This is born out of being able to set my calendar, give myself the opportunity to continue to create content for other photographers. I just played a mother-son tennis tournament with my mom this weekend, which is possible because we've been trying to do it for 3 years and we haven't been able to because I've had a shoot or I've been teaching a workshop or I've been whatever. So being able to do the structure or COVID, exactly. So what it ended up doing was setting up all these things in place, created exclusivity. That wasn't the purpose to begin with. And I want to be clear, I think a lot of people, when they think of exclusivity, is like the timer at the bottom of the screen or 2 spots left this month, catch it before it goes. Or, just sort of these like little catchphrases, sale, 50% sale today only. Yeah. And those things are like the very last step. Like, if you can't get somebody to connect with why they should hire you, then having something on sale isn't going to get you the clients you want anyways. Then having a last minute availability isn't going to get you the clients you want anyways. So to have what I'll see a lot of photographers do is they'll have like an about me section says, "Hi, I'm so and so, book now." But it's like they didn't really connect with you in the first place, so why would they click that book button? On the home page, they says, "Are you ready?" But it's like, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready because I haven't yet connected with your business. So once you do all of those things and create that eagerness, then the exclusivity on the second half of it is like the turbo.
That totally makes sense. Wow. And I know that we've like kind of only scratched the surface too, as far as not only your business model, but some of the principles that drive what it is that you're doing as a photographer. I mean, there's so many details that we could dig into, but I'm going to kind of save that for our listeners for a couple of reasons. One, and I'm going to pull this up here as we're talking yet again. Well, first of all, your website, sasserstillsboudoir.com, and we'll link to this in the show notes for everybody who is listening or watching. And you can make sure to go check that out. Same thing on Instagram, but you also have education available at boudoircourses.com. Can you talk just a little bit? And by the way, you didn't set this up for me or ask me to dig into this in detail, but I just want our listeners to know about it. Talk to me a little bit about what's available here that maybe even builds on what we talked about today.
Yeah, so I decided to put together just like really easy to follow a couple of online courses that have evolved over the years, and I've continued to add. So the Boudoir Accelerator course is really for anybody who's interested in starting their boudoir business. If you're making your $200 a client shoot and you're just like so frustrated that you can't get out of that market, if that's one of your goals, it's really done wonders. I talk about some different things. If you guys are just looking, you're not ready to invest in something, I've worked really hard to provide a ton of free information, education that's on my YouTube channel, which I know you're going to link to. There's like 75 videos. They're all focused on boudoir. Yeah. For the people who want to dig in a little bit more and want to go from somebody, who's saying she's booking a bunch of clients at $200 and now she's doing $2,000. That's it's really amazing. So I'll just tell you a couple of things that are in there. There's the 25 poses that I use for almost every client that I shoot, so you can see what works and what people buy. If you want to know my pricing structure, I have that in there. I walk you through specifically my price list and why I have it the way I have it, and how you can start at like an earlier, you're like, Michael, come on, $2,000. I'm just charging $200 here. Like, how am I supposed to get there? It teaches you how to go incrementally there. I have my phone script for if you're nervous about talking on the phone, you don't know how to talk to clients on the phone. I've got my script, a downloadable PDF script that you can just follow word for word. I've got everything. I've got the emails that I use to send to clients. It's really an all-encompassing course, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing, and so that's what's in the course. Boudoircourses.com. Cool. It's killer. We'll link to it in the show notes, and of course your YouTube channel as well, which I was also scrolling through a second ago as you were talking. There's so much content here, and again, it's so well produced.
And I mean, for those of you who are not actually watching the live feed right now, just go check it out. And that is youtube.com/Michael Sasser, Sasser. We will link to that in the show notes, but make sure you go check that out because there's just a wealth of information there. And I watch enough, I consume enough content, Michael, that I really appreciate good production value too. You're really up in the ante in that regard. So props to you for that. But man, thank you so much. Speaking of time and time management, I want to respect your time. Thank you for making time for all of us though today. I really, really appreciate it. And of course, we'll link to all the information here in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com for everybody who is watching or listening in. Make sure to take advantage of that, the talking points from today. Any closing words, Michael, as we get ready to sign off?
Man, this inspirational music is
there
getting
you go.
to me. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can hit me up on Instagram. But I'll just say that the biggest difference I see between photographers who find success and the ones who get stuck are the ones who are willing to take the risks. They're the ones who are, they try the thing. The first time I sent out my wait list to get, to sign up for call times, not a single person signed up. And instead of feeling really defeated, I just made a couple of adjustments. I set it up again. I had 6 people sign up, and now I regularly have 13 or 14 people that are on that list, but it started at 0. So just know that the first time you do something, it's not supposed to be perfect. You're just supposed to do it. And as we all grow, we get to where we want to be.
Beautifully and perfectly kind of paired with the music, as you said too. That's good stuff, Michael. I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for watching, for listening in. Again, make sure you follow us on Bokeh Podcast to keep up to date with the next live stream, and check out the show notes at bokehpodcast.com to check out all the goodies from today's conversation. Thanks again, Michael. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a couple of technical difficulties here during the stream today, and my apologies. A little bit of a connection issue there, and then for whatever funny reason, and I'll break the fourth wall here and tell you what's going on. We literally have no stop button. So we are live streaming. It is forcing us to live stream, and I literally have no way to stop the live stream. This is very fascinating. So let's see if we can figure out how to fix the issue here. Because otherwise you're going to get to just be a part of my life for the rest of the day. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Well, I guess if all else fails, we cut the camera and we shut the software down. We'll see if that does the trick. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.